Hello and welcome to the Tech Lunch Podcast, where we encourage our listeners to learn something new about tech every week. This can range from learning about new and exciting applications to the advancements in coding and technology. If you are always learning, you will always be a step above the rest. Take the time during lunch or during a break to listen and learn, kind of like a lunch and learn, but for the ears. This podcast will open the listener's ears to new and exciting technologies they may have not been privy to in the past. These topics will range from manufacturing technologies to data collection technologies and everything in between. Hello, I'm Nick.
Hello, I'm Ed.
All right, and this week we're going to kind of talk about visualization. We're going to look back at the Industry 4.0, MQTT stuff, and also the big the data. You know, we have this data now. What are we going to do with it? Episodes we've done in the past, and we're going to start digging into the visualizations of how do you visualize this data. And you know, Ed, when you're thinking about visualization, and especially like we're visualizing data, what are you thinking about?
Well, when I think about visualizing data, I'm thinking about we have a lot of signals flowing through the shop floor, and with those signals, a lot of times it's a lot of information. When you use visualization, now I can make it a graphical representation, and a guy can easily see with a bar graph or with some kind of chart what a sensor is doing, what an actuator is doing, or he can see where you're having a issue on the line via visualization.
Yeah, and also you have like KPIs and stuff like that. You know, for the people who don't really know a whole lot about visualization, when you think about it, whenever you look at your bank account, you can see the little bar graph that tells you how much you spent and how much you saved. That is a visualization. That is a data-driven visualization that takes the data of what you've been spending and what you've been saving, converting it to a visual graphical interface, or part of the GUI. From there, you can also take this big data that we've been talking about, like MQTT. We're taking all this data, throwing it into data streams via Kibana or any other type of logging software that's out there, and taking that and converting that to a visual representation using like Kibana's dashboarding feature, and pushing that out to the populace, pushing that out to management and stuff like that. It's also a good way to look and see and visualize what your type of maintenance environment is looking like.
And also you can use it in a situation where you want to know, hey, I've got a lot of problems somewhere. I want to know what my top hitters are. You can use heat maps. And via heat maps, you can say, hey, this is a consistent problem that we're having. Here's where we need to concentrate all of our efforts in reducing some of the issues or the repeat hitters inside of a production environment.
Yeah, and it's also, if you think about it, it's also not like, data driven, visualizations. It could just be, an information board, or like sometimes you hear something called an on-don board, where we take data out of a database and present it on the screen that shows kind of what's in the area. If you're talking about like, vehicles and stations, if you're talking about an automotive manufacturing, or, bin locations, if you're talking about a logistics environment. And, it's kind of just gives you a basic overview and a little bit more control of the information that you're flowing.
And it's a lot easier for somebody to visualize something in a process as opposed to have to read a bunch of lines of information. It's really simple for an operator to go and have his process or their process where they can say, hey, this is step 1, this is step 2, and step 3. And it's a visualization of what they're supposed to do. And they get a confirmation that they did it right. So that's another aspect of visualization.
Yeah. And it's like, if you think about it, you can take that visualization, easily present it in a meeting or in a different other environment or anything like that where somebody needs to make a quick decision about the data that's being presented. No one wants to read lines and lines and lines and lines of data thinking that, okay, I know what I'm looking at. When you can put it out there in visual representation, they'll understand it. Because most people out there are visual and hands-on learners. So the best way to get that data out there is put it in a visual form.
Correct. And another way is now I can add a certain color to let somebody know, hey, we have an issue. I can set the visualization to say, hey, this is my min and this is my max. Hey, this is what I produce and what I have not produced. This is what's left to produce. And as Nick said, now I do not have to gather a bunch of data and go through it and scroll through it and try to figure it out. I can look right at a bar graph, and a bar graph will tell me where we at percentage-wise.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing goes like if you're looking at your, storage on your laptop or whatever, it tells you just how much storage you have left. And instead of throwing you a, bunch of numbers saying, cool, I've got, 5,000 megs left. No, we're telling you have 5 gigs left, and you actually see a bar graph telling you how much you have left. That is the basics of a visualization that is data derived. And, the other way we're thinking about it, especially if you're talking about KPIs, you're talking about like key process indicators. You're talking about, I'm going to visualize everything that I'm doing. I'm going to visualize worker steps. So the worker knows what to do, what to pick, and what sequence of those steps have to take place, or you're going to end up with a quality issue.
And to go back to where we said and done boards, we can add different colors to let immediately know on the shop floor that, hey, we have an issue in this station. Or we can say, here's what's been done or produced for the day. It's not only are we providing information for the analytics on the floor, but we're also providing this information to the workers so they actually know what they're doing, how productive they are, or or if they're not productive. So the other thing that is great for is when I need to do analysis, or someone needs to do an analysis of a breakdown or do an analysis of a failure point. We can look at that graphically and say, hey, okay, now I see where we're having these issues. It was this many times for this duration.
Yeah, it's a visual alarm. And, that's one way to look at it. It's a visual alarm based off of information that is coming into the system via MQTT or via a database or, from a subsystem, like your MES systems or your SCADA systems, depending on how you get it. And I think that's kind of where the delineating line is of where we're talking about data quality. And because data quality equals a better visual for somebody to be able to see.
And yes, and if I'm the CEO of a company, I don't have time to consume every report. I want all of that put into one area. So visualization also touches on dashboards, and dashboards that represent KPIs and show basically the health of the shop floor.
Yeah. And I think, the dashboard topic, dashboarding is one thing that, you can keep up on your screens all day long and watch it change. You can set it up for refresh rates, just a couple minutes. If your tack time, if you're working in a manufacturing environment, say, 5-6 minutes or 90 seconds, you can have that, dashboard refreshing every minute or every 2 minutes to kind of update, what's going on across the entire plant. And also if you think about your stocks and ranges and the logistics aspect, that kind of tells you where you're short and where you're not. Via visual aspect. Cool, I know I have this many of these parts left, but how do I show that on a screen? And I think that's, kind of the big thing of that's where the dashboard comes into play. Your controllers can see that on a routine basis, on a constant basis, to stay always informed and always a step above everybody else.
And then we have to look at it like the effectiveness and the delivery mechanism we're using for visualization. How we define important meanings so that people can extract data readily, quickly. And then you have to look at how is it on a periodical basis. And then determining the right timing of the data presentation so that when a person looks at a KPI, he knows what he's getting. And then we also want the right data. We don't want just data. We want good data.
Exactly. And that comes from your user stories. That also comes from, your management style and stuff like that. The user stories tell you kind of what you have to develop. And like some dashboards are done and combined in the dashboarding feature and the visualization feature, or we do them in like Microsoft Power BI, taken out of a data lake. Or if you want to build an on board, you're talking about CS and ASPX. If you're talking server side code, it really just depends on how you look at it.
Like, and I hate to keep going back to the business aspect, but for the people that are driving all of the things that make the company grow and all of the things that make the company efficient, they need this data in real time. They need this data to be accurate. They need this data to be condensed, and they need this data to point them in the right direction. Where do we move the resources? Where do we put the expertise? When do we need to step back for a moment and reassess the situation when we have something that interrupts production? All these things can be readily available and quick on your mobile app, on your personal area network if you got a smart watch, or it can be on and-done boards. It can come to your PC. It can come in the form of an email or a message. And all these things can be incorporated and become a real-time tool.
I agree with that. And, the thing is, and I think it kind of goes for most people who are thinking about it, you cannot run, in this day and age, an effective company without some sort of dashboarding, without knowing, or visualization for that matter, of knowing what you want to see. If you don't have the ability to see your data in a physical form or in a digital form, you can't control what is going on inside your environment. If you think about it from like the cybersecurity standpoint, if you think about it, if I have a dashboard up there that shows me how many open vulnerabilities I have, as I knock those out, I can see those disappear. So now I know my company is now set in a higher point as far as for information technology readiness.
And also from an aspect of asset management, I can visually see that I have 500 widgets out on the floor, and 495 widgets are working and 5 widgets are not. So now I don't have to concentrate on the 495 widgets that are working. I can put all of my resources or take and direct my experts or direct my knowledge base or my center of competency to those 5 assets that are not working.
Exactly. It's a great way to be able to, stay ahead of the game. Keep ahead of the ball. And, that's the thing. And, that's kind of what we've been harping on the past couple weeks is, learning this methodology and, learning how that works. And that also ties back into your IT versus OT conversation that we had last week. And, that's something where, you have different dashboards for different people, different strokes for different folks. And, for the shop floor guys, you want to know about, oh, cool, I'm doing this many freaking vehicles per hour. This is my FTC, first time completion. This is also my vulnerability at the shop floor. In IT, people think about, okay, cool, I've had this many assets on the floor. This is how they're being used. These are their vulnerability status. And this is how I can attack those and also see how many open tickets I have and versus how many closed tickets I have.
And then think about infographics. You can use infographics to take, both information and graphics and put them together. And like I said, anything that makes it easy to understand, all the way from the person loading the part, all the way up to the person ordering how many parts. If we can look at this visually, it's a lot easier. We're more visual than we are looking at raw data. Mm-hmm. We're not ones and zeros. We're visual, real things in the world. So for us, anytime we can get a graphical display or anytime we can use a human interface to make the job easier, it makes sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you think about it, UPS and FedEx and all of them have been doing this for years. You have a graph on their website that tells you, pretty much mainly FedEx, and UPS, is where I'm at in the delivery sequence. I've shipped, I've arrived, I've shipped again, I've arrived. Hey, guess what? Now I'm at your front doorstep. That is a dashboard. That is a visualization that takes data from the scans. Because if you look at the data, you look at the little dashboard they give you for your package, down below it has all the data. All that data is condensed into that one infographic that you can look at and go, okay, cool, now I know where I'm at, without having to go down below and read it.
And that's why people make charts. That's why people take a pie chart and say, hey, this slice of the pie chart is where we're good. Hey, and this slice of the pie chart, well, we don't utilize that as much.
Yeah.
So you can take quickly and make sound decisions based off of a few graphical displays. That's why on the shop floor, in the office, whether it's an and-done board, whether it's a KPI dashboard, or whether it's a human-machine interface, these things make life easier and basically make us more efficient.
Yeah. If you think about it, most people are doing dashboards and not even knowing it. If they're building pie charts, line graphs, bar charts in PowerPoint or Excel, they're making a visualization, whether they know it or not. They might just say, hey, cool, I'm making a bar chart. I'm going to present this to my CEO. I have a bunch of, pie charts I need to put on this, PowerPoint slide and go through telling them what their sales figures are. Well, guess what you just made? You made a dashboard. You made a visualization. Put on auto loop. And now guess what? You have something where somebody can look at it on a daily basis as long as it updates.
And that's why flow charts are so powerful. I can take a flow chart and easily show somebody, this is where we begin. Here's all the parameters to get to the end. And if something is not met, if a condition is not met, then go back to the previous step. Until that condition is met, you don't advance. Now I can use this as a way for sequencing a process. So a person knows that at this point, if I don't have this satisfied, then I do not advance to the next step. And it's easy and graphical. And then I don't have to spend years and years training somebody. It's really, really quick. It's really, really efficient. And I can get somebody up to speed quick.
Yeah. And I think that's, a great way of thinking about it. Because, it tells us how many times you violated that particular sequence. It kind of tells, what's going on, what type of training might need to happen, and how that all comes back to fruition. How it all kind of wraps back around itself. You need to know data. You need to get your data, to present your data, to know your data, to come back around again, to get the right data, and keep moving again. And, that it sounds kind of like a convoluted loop, but if I have my data but I can't present it, what good is my data?
And then another thing, what if I have this big organization? It's really hard for somebody to remember every person or every step in the organization. Where if I got an organizational chart that displays who's doing what, who's where, and where everybody falls in this hierarchy, then everybody always know where to go.
Yeah.
I know to go to this person because this person is responsible for this, and I found it in the organizational chart.
Yeah, and that's a great way of looking at it. Understanding who's who in your zoo. Taking your corporate directory and spitting it out into a bunch of images and showing people how the information flow works.
Yep. And then another thing that a lot of people don't really think about that you can use graphical user interfaces for is, say for example, you're running and you have a smartwatch. Well, how does that smartwatch display the information? It doesn't just display numbers. It displays charts. It displays what percentage, and it's really easy for you to use. That same concept can be taken to the shop floor, or it can be taken to the office to show, hey, a printer using this amount of resources. Hey, this printer is low on this amount of ink, and it's all graphical.
Yeah.
I don't have to see 25% or look at some display and try to figure it out. It tells me what it is.
Yeah.
A person doesn't have to go to the shop floor and say, hey, we're at 25%. We probably need to go get another roll of paper to put in the printer.
Right. It's like project management on a screen. It shows what you've been doing. Also, kind of gives credit where credit is due in the process of getting stuff done. And I really think that that's kind of, how we have to look at it. It helps understand where your deficiencies are and also kind of celebrates your accomplishments in the grand scheme of things.
And if you're doing project management, you always need some way to keep up with what you're doing. You can use Gantt charts or timelines to show, hey, this is my projected time. This is where I'm supposed to be. Hey, this is where I am.
Right.
I'm this percentage done. Or we can use the traffic light concept where, hey, I'm red, I'm in the green, or I'm in the yellow. I can show where I'm at. Progress. Really easy, simple. A quick look, I know where I'm at.
Right.
And everybody know the progress.
And if you think about it, if you also take that and take that and go to resources, how many people are working on this project? How much of their time of their day is dedicated to this project versus that project? If you have that up on a board, you can visually represent what your team is doing on a daily basis to be able to show that you're contributing to the overall mission and the objective of the company.
And imagine if you had like you have a stock ticker. What if I had a stock ticker that showed every so many, at an interval, it showed, hey, we produced this amount, or hey, we haven't produced this amount, or hey, we have to produce this amount. That can easily be shown on a scrolling marquee.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, NASDAQ's the number one freaking user of freaking visualizations. And that's just because that's what they do. That, and they make dashboards for people. They have that all up there on the board because you wouldn't be trading stocks or getting into Bitcoin or crypto if you didn't know what you were looking at.
And then if you're doing any type of analysis, everybody should be familiar with the 80-20 principle. So Pareto charts would be good. Once again, you want to convey to your immediate personnel what's going on. You want to convey to your higher level management immediately what's going on. They do not have time to sit and consume every bit of the detail. You have to give them the morsel. You have to give them that one morsel that they can go with it and make a decision. Because time is money, and if you're wasting time, you're losing money.
Yeah, it's off the Lean Six Sigma approach, and that's kind of where you're identifying your waste, because you can identify waste really, really, really quickly. With a dashboard and stuff like that, kind of see what's going on. You can also look and see where your possibility for improvement is. That's a great way. And the thing is building visualizations or dashboards, however you want to call it. That is a great way to follow the Lean Six Sigma approach. And that is also a great way to make sure that everything is easily understood.
And another thing that you also have is, even on your car, you have visualization. You have gauges to tell you when you're low on gas. Yep. You have gauges to tell you when your car is running hot. Well, this same concept can be taken to the shop floor, and the same concept can be used to show, hey, the compressed air is below whatever normaliters is supposed to be, or whatever millibar is supposed to be, or whatever PSI is supposed to be. Hey, we have an issue with the water pressure. Hey, we have an issue with the power dropping below a certain value. All these things can be visualized, and you can know real time, not only that you're having issues with those things, but also consumption. We can also use this visualization to have a real time view of which consumption of utilities is a cost. So if we can be efficient with that, then we can reduce costs.
Yeah. And the thing is always trying to, reduce waste. And, overutilized cost is a waste. And, and that's kind of where we kind of get into, where are we going to next? And, that's the big thing, is making sure that we have, boards out there and stuff to make informed decisions, so we don't make the wrong decisions in the process. So, that's kind of where we're at.
And I would say we want the dashboards to be intelligent.
Yeah.
We want the dashboards to be a living dashboard. Yeah. So not static. We want dynamic dashboards.
Something auto update. Yeah.
We want it to where, hey, it's not just gathering data. It's taking this data and sending that data to the cloud. And then inside of the cloud, we're doing edge computing, or we're doing fog computing. We're taking these data points and doing something with it.
Right, exactly. You won't want something to make, we don't want to make the decisions for us, but we kind of want to just, make us and give us a little bit of a helping hand. That could be like a notification to your cell phone saying, hey, guess what, dummy, look at the screen. That could be just all it is, or hey, guess what, we got this log. And, that's how we look at it that way.
And I would say, imagine if you had a system that would say, hey, in about 30 minutes, we're going to be out of material. It would be nice to know that 45 minutes before so that you can arrange to have another tote if you're doing paint, or another barrel if you're doing sealer, or hey, we're running out of bolts to go into the nut runner. You can bring all these things ahead of time, so you build in a cushion so that if you get to a point that you are running out of material, you have a way to compensate. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it should be predictive. It should say, hey, we waste about 10% of what we do in the material with purging.
Right.
We waste about 10% of the hardware with people spilling them on the floor, or hardware getting dropped. Or we waste, so much because maybe someone didn't know the process right. They hit the wrong button, did the wrong sequence. When we can be predictive with with visualization and KPIs, then we can automatically compensate for those losses and reduce those losses from 10% to maybe 0.1%.
Yeah, able to catch it early and make the informed decision before something even happens. And understanding where the deficiencies are in the process and where you have to kind of, get behind with a little bit of a push. That's kind of where you look at it from there. And, at this point, we kind of want to wrap up this week a little bit. And, we kind of also want to leave you with a little bit of a charge. Kind of something we like to do every week, kind of leave you with a charge. And, that charge is look in your current environment and see what type of visualizations and, dashboards you're using. Look at the type of stuff that you're looking at using at your company and try to implement a new dashboard or a new process, or even just look into that type of system and see how that can happen and how that can be beneficial. Define your requirements, define your user stories, and go through and attempt to build something to better the environment that you're in, or at least learn something new about it.
And the system does not need to be convoluted or complex. Open Excel, put in some information, and visualize those things in Excel. Start there and build from Excel, and from Excel you can make simple dashboards. Always make simple dashboards and then go into more complicated and more extravagant dashboards. But you all want to start simple.
Exactly. And, the big thing is, like we also try to preach is keep learning. Keep getting behind what we've been talking about the past couple weeks, and try to take all that and combine it into one package. And, get ahead of the ball game, before it's too late. We don't want to have anybody, falling behind.
And I would say this is probably a good place to stop. And from my side, we appreciate everybody that's following us. And we just love to bring content to people so that they can have a little bit of learning during lunch. And I'll turn it over to Nick.
Yep. And, couldn't say it better myself. And, we want to, leave y'all with that charge. Get out there, learn something, have a little bit of fun with it, and, pick up a new skill while you're at it. So, we leave you with that, and, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Tech at Lunch podcast, where we hope you learned something about tech during your break or during your lunchtime. If you did, please give us a follow to prevent missing future episodes. If you have any ideas or something you want to hear or learn about, please send us a show idea to podcast@vulcanara.com. Hope you have a good rest of the day and continue learning.